Hello, we're Frank and Angie, and we sold everything and moved to Latin America, specifically Ecuador. We've had enough experience now traveling just within Latin America, Ecuador, Panama and such, with renting Airbnb type of lodging. And there's a lot of talk in the travel community about how things are better now, things are easier than they were back in the past for travel. We're trying to help people that maybe are thinking of traveling and are looking at using online portals as a way to make it easier, and we want to steer you in the right direction so that you won't have the fiascos that happen to people when they first start doing these things. So here we go. Now, the first thing I want to say is that this is not a bash Airbnb video. Airbnb's customer service and assistance was impeccable. They were just amazing. They just bent over backwards to make things better for us. But even so, we're going through a institutional system, a company, a corporation, and they do have great customer service. But we need to remember that what makes up the meat and potatoes of Airbnb is mom and pop people just like you and me. This is just people getting on this portal and renting their property through an online portal. So that's what we have to remember, is that we're really dealing on a one-to-one basis with an individual. So number one on the list is to watch out for is if it's a brand new listing. If it's a brand new listing, meaning the host is brand new and there are no reviews yet, or maybe even one review, you have to be careful. So if they're new and there's one review and you're trying to rent for what's considered in this space as more of a medium term, that would be 2 weeks to a month, without being able to utilize the review system and such, it's not recommended to make travel plans from abroad based on that. I would completely avoid, especially in Latin America, and I'll tell you why in a second. Especially in Latin America, I would completely avoid anyone that's new. I mean, we had a situation where we traveled all the way from Ecuador to Panama, and I had everything worked out. I had the flight, I had the van from the airport, I had the Airbnb lined up, so I had everything lined up, except for when we got to the Airbnb, nothing was as it was advertised. And I mean nothing. Not the price, not the place. It didn't even have any furniture. The place basically didn't exist. And the reason they gave was, oh, sorry, you know, our employee that posted the listing is new. So, oops. You know, yeah, I just flew in from Ecuador. This is not an isolated incident. We are not talking about a one-time thing. You see this on YouTube with expats where they'll have something happen to them one time, and then they'll make this video as if that's how things go all the time. Rather, what we've done is we've traveled enough times now and have utilized Airbnb and other portals enough times to see a pattern, and that's what we're talking about here, is the pattern. And once we see the pattern, then we know what to avoid. So what we've got going on here is basically Latin American slow service or lack of service. We're all aware of it. The service levels are different. The expectation of service is different. A lot of people know that, but see, that extends into the hospitality business, because hospitality is a service. It's all about service. If you're coming into a culture where service isn't yet ingrained to a certain level, let's say, okay? And so now we're coming into the hospitality space, and therefore this lack of service translates into just an inability to provide service in this space. I mean, it's one thing to sit at a restaurant and nobody pays attention to you for 40 minutes. But it's another thing to make air plans, flight plans and landing and everything. You cannot rely on that. So avoid, number one, listings that have no reviews at all. Now, I know what you're thinking. If you're a quick thinker, this is what I thought. I thought, okay, well, here's what I'll do then. I'll just book it for 1 or 2 nights so that I can confirm. And that would, you know what, that would be an excellent plan if you're already on the ground in the location, but not as your initial landing pad when you're crossing borders and traveling. Because once you're already here, you obviously can give yourself an extra day of time where you can go inspect the neighborhood. You can, you know, there's just a lot more that you can verify once you're already on the ground. You can get them on WhatsApp, ask them a lot of questions. Along the same lines of the lack of service, there's a certain amount of inattentiveness to the customer that translates into, well, for example, I was trying to go back and forth, and it wasn't just the non-responsiveness and the slowness of the responses, but it was just like, okay, well, so I asked like 3 questions, doesn't answer the questions, sends me a link to book. Oh, book, oh, yeah, okay. Well, knowing better, I didn't book, was waiting for the answers, and I had to push the lady 3 times to give me answers. And it turns out that she wasn't even around for the time period we were considering booking. She was on vacation to a 3rd country. She wasn't even around, but there she was sending me a link. So what am I trying to tell you is that this inattentiveness to the customer translates into you know, just selling the service anyway without consideration for your needs. You can slant that however you want. So number 1 would be listing with no reviews, new listings, skip them. The other thing would be the lack of service, and the next thing would be, I called it business ethics, but it's the inattentiveness to the customer comes across as an ethics issue when anyone can get on a portal, and you know, you're dealing with individuals. So I mean, you know, a lot of people are honest, and some people just don't care about you. They'll take the money and run. So let's just be clear, you know, let's just say how it is, right? No beating around the bush. I'm not discussing complete cultures in this way. I'm just saying that the law of averages says that you deal with 10 people, you know, you're going to run into people like this that will just take the money regardless of your needs. And so you have to investigate things yourself. I met a couple that got an Airbnb, and it was in Ecuador, and it was they felt that was really great price. The price was right. It was Ecuador, and everything. But the place when I went up there was really tiny, and it was on the 4th floor with no elevator, and it was in a bad neighborhood. So I'm just saying that these are the kinds of things that fall under. It could be business ethics, but it also could be just an inattentiveness, lack of experience in doing business. And with my experience in dealing with customers and doing business off of portals, I've learned many years ago that what you want to do is the complete opposite. You want to be completely transparent when you sell online, and you want to be completely upfront about all the flaws and everything, so that customers know what they're getting, and therefore when they buy your product or service, having the full knowledge of all the flaws and all the problems, that you avoid any conflict. So instead, what you're getting here is the complete opposite. You're getting the inexperienced business method or way of doing things, where they hide all the flaws and don't bring any of that up, and then later you find that you really didn't get the deal you really thought you were getting. And this is extremely prevalent in Latin America, Ecuador, Panama, and I imagine and beyond. And again, this all has to do with dealing with hosts that haven't been on the portal, haven't been primed on how to do it right, haven't had the level of time invested in working with the portal to understand how to please customers and that kind of thing. So that's what it comes down to. And you've got a lot of people that are on these Airbnb portals that have been doing it for a long time. They have lots of reviews, and they have figured things out. So it's not an indictment of everyone of everyone on Airbnb or all complete cultures and everything. There's a lot of people on there that are doing it right. A lot of people getting online now on Airbnbs and other portals, just coming on board in droves, and no doubt they're hearing about all the money that people are making. And so in a way, that's a good thing, because it gives us, the consumer, a lot more product and service. But in a way, we also have to be careful, because you've got all these inexperienced people on there. And that brings me to number 4, that I expect to pay a premium for convenience. I'm okay with that as a concept, but there's another side to this story that is a little bit uglier than that. I mean, in light of everything I just said about how, just the fact that hospitality is a service and you're not really getting it, especially from the people that are coming on board in droves, and then the ones that have a lot of reviews, their prices being much higher. That's what I'm getting to, is that the values aren't really there. It's not a place to get any kind of value. I mean, I have seen places that, aside from the lack of service that I've just discussed and all the other issues, aside from that, the actual place itself, on a scale from 1 to 10, would not rate in the top 5. I mean, it would rate at the bottom. And yet the prices that they're asking are similar to high quality lodging. And of course, I know that that's vague, because high quality, you can go all the way up to $35,000 a night. I'm just saying, though, in general, the kind of prices they're asking aren't worth what you're getting, and the values just aren't there. And when you couple that with these issues, you have to be really, really careful. So where does that leave us? Well, as an option, just to discuss an option, is that you can always rent from gringos. Now, there are advantages, because obviously they come from a culture where service has been highlighted and well exposed within the culture for many years. But generally speaking, you can expect a little bit higher level of service, or a lot higher, better level of service. The challenge with that is that the prices, I discussed a lack of value just a minute ago, the prices are even higher than the already high prices that a portal like Airbnb seems to create among its hosts. I see it as just kind of a, leveling machine, where people get on there and see other people's listings and say, well, if they're getting that much, then my place is worth this much, without regard to level of service, quality of the lodging, location, and all that kind of thing. So, is that really an option, renting from gringos? My opinion is, if you have to pay exorbitant amounts, when I say exorbitant amounts, I'm talking about relative to the earnings of the local culture. I mean, you've got people in Europe that are from England and going to these cheap Eastern European countries, bragging about how cheap an apartment they're getting at $800 when the locals are earning $300 a month. You know how I feel about that. I think that that's a really bad thing to do. Brag about how cheap something is because you're comparing it to back home, and here you are paying 3 times a person's monthly salary for your lodging and then calling it cheap. I think it's a disservice to the locals. But beyond that premise, however, just the idea that the lack of value is going to gringos, their prices are even higher. So that's it. That's it, guys. I mean, we're stuck with that. I mean, it's like, do we have to sit here and pay $200 a night just to get, decent service? Or can we pay a more reasonable price? Can we pay $50 a night? Can we pay $40, $50, $60, $70 a night and get decent service? You certainly can. you like the video, you know what to do. And support the channel and subscribe. And we've got some goodies below the videos for you after the video.